Welcome to the Pilates Physios, where anatomy meets abs and science meets sweat. I'm Tanya Winter, physiotherapist and co-founder of Studio Pilates International. I'm super passionate about making Pilates education better and training world-class Pilates instructors with real-world skills.
And I'm James Mangahas, a physiotherapist, course facilitator, and veteran Pilates instructor.
Together, we're diving into the world of Pilates from a physio's point of view, breaking down movement science, busting myths, sharing instructing tips, and helping you become the Pilates instructor everyone wants teaching their class. So James, one of the things that newer instructors find a bit challenging at times is how to cater for different levels within a class. If you're taking a group class, whether it be mat or reformer, you might have some people in the class that are more advanced, others that are much lower level. Like, what's your advice to new instructors on that?
Yeah, nice. Look, I think the best way to manage a class, whether it be 2 people all the way to 20 or whatever size class that you're going to have, is that always think about it in terms of we're going to cue to what most people can do. So think about the level of exercise that you're going to do that almost everyone in your class can perform. And then based on that, whilst your clients are moving and they're already performing the exercises, you can provide levels to go down or to go up. Okay. And I think that's a great way of doing it, especially when we talk about our Studio Pilates courses and then instructing how we teach the cueing formula. That's essentially what we do. We teach the version of the exercise that probably most of your class members are going to be able to do. And then once people are starting to move, we include things like to make it more challenging or to make it easier. Okay. And then I think the good thing about that is that it's not going to isolate someone who does need to go down to a lower level or make them feel bad, for example, but then also it's going to give someone some positive reinforcement if they're able to go to do the more challenging cue that you've given them. So I think it's manages the class really well, but then also you can cater to that larger group of people. I think probably the thing that you want to avoid is to aim too high, okay? And then start cueing an exercise or selecting an exercise that is super challenging and might really, really be fun for your super advanced client, then that might be one of the 20 people in that class, and then the rest of the class are going to start to feel a little bit, dejected or, not feel as good about themselves because they feel a bit uncoordinated on the reformer or they're not feeling the particular muscles working, A great example of this is even just in terms of just doing some basic arm exercises like, hug a tree, for example. When we do hug a tree, it's always good to sort of cue them to open their arms only a moderate amount, especially if you have a big class. Then you have your clients who start to get good or a bit stronger. You can tell them to open their arms a bit wider. Okay, so and what that does is that most of the class is exercising in a range that they can still feel the exercises, but probably in a safer range where the shoulders might not be in any stress or anything like that. And then you have your more advanced person who's like, okay, great, I can do this because I've been cued to do so. I think that's a really, really nice way of making people feel that they're still included in the workout, but they can also start to really increase or decrease the same exercise and cater to everyone in your class. What would you do?
I really like all the things, and a few of the things you've picked up that I've picked up that you just said. I love the idea of picking an exercise that most people can do. One of the reasons why people sometimes stop coming to Pilates initially is because they feel like they're useless at it and they're too bad at it. So if you have too many exercises in a class that some of the lower level people can't even attempt, not only might they hurt themselves, but it just makes them feel like they're just absolutely terrible. It is good to pick exercises, I think, agree that most people are going to be able to do, and then really challenge and stretch and give progressions to those that can't, lots of different levels. And generally the people who are really good then feel like, oh, I'm amazing. I got this extra little thing to do. It kind of caters to everyone. You want to build people up, not pull them down.
Exactly.
Make them exactly the method you said, I think will leave everyone feeling that they've been able to achieve something And the advanced people like, oh, I achieved even extra.
Yeah, exactly. And then also you can include things like, your small props and stuff like that. I think you have, your balls, circles, bands. These are other extra options that you can add to a class that people can use. And the cool thing about things like, bands and stuff like that is that it does have progressive resistance. It depends on obviously the studio that you have, but you can have bands of different resistance levels. So you can have a heavier band that people can use, and also you can stretch the band further. And the cool thing about bands is that the more they stretch, the more they pull on you. So you're giving that client more of a challenge for that particular level just by including one small band that just you can just be right next to them the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea with the props and even like the circles between the legs for abs or whatnot. If you're going to be teaching mat work alone, I think it's essential to really go on and do some of those small prop courses, because not only does it add variety to your classes, but you're right, you can give it to specific people and not the whole class necessarily, or, give people the option to do it with or without. And that really caters to different levels as well.
Yeah. I guess then the last thing to sort of talk about that as well is that a lot of the exercises that most people can do, and this is a generalized rule. This doesn't always apply to everything, but the exercises that most people can do tend to also be the ones that are the most strength adaptation based ones, like they're the ones that can target the muscle group really, really well, and apply force to those target muscles. So if you're looking to try to actually get good results with your clients, those are those exercises that you're probably going to choose 90% of your repertoire anyways, because that's the one that's going to get your clients the best results. Like those other increases or decreases of exercises, they are great, but then sometimes that might actually lead to sometimes a less a result from them, because it could be just more of a choreography based challenge for them to do, so they're not actually applying too much more pressure on the muscles or more retention on the muscles that you are doing, as opposed to the regular version.
I'm going to segue that and now let's talk about Instagram, social media, Pilates. I don't know about your thoughts on this, but on the one hand, I think that the fact that there's lots of, really fit, amazing looking, beautiful people on Instagram and social media doing Pilates, because overall it builds up Pilates. It shows people, Pilates is great. And then on the other hand, sometimes I think it can do harm, because often the people that are portrayed, in these videos or photos that they're posting of themselves are all young in the little crop tops, like beautiful figures, but I don't want it to have the impact that people that might not be that age or might not look exactly like that to think that they can't do Pilates, or even men, because, some of all the things you see on Instagram, it's usually not people doing the bulk of the normal exercises. It's them doing something that's really out there, crazy, super hard, looks really cool, but then sometimes it actually doesn't really work anywhere particularly hard. And it's not necessarily even a super effective exercise. It just looks cool, so I feel like it can have some really great benefits for social media and for awareness, but then sometimes I think it has a negative impact on people thinking, oh, I can't go to Pilates, I can't do that, I don't look like that.
Yeah. It's obviously a challenging one for me too, because like I see, if I just click on Instagram right now, or any social media, like, I'm obviously algorithed to a lot of Pilates based things now. And I love the fact that Pilates is out there. Everyone is, it's very trendy at the moment. People want to do it, which is amazing, because then, it's much better for someone to exercise than it is to not. That's great. But I think that, sometimes when you want to try to capture an audience, then you are starting to do and show exercises on your Instagram that might not be the most accessible to your clients. And, even back to what we were talking about before in terms of your programming, you want your exercises to produce a result. And sometimes if you don't follow a few important things in terms of, generally speaking, your exercise should, one, target a specific muscle group or multiple of them. I also think that for a really good an exercise, it needs to be somewhat like have that ability to progress, either mostly in its resistance, and if you can increase the resistance in that exercise by changing the mechanics, or the resistance like on the springs, if you're doing it on the reformer, that's a good exercise, because then that person can do that for life, okay, and they continuously get good at it and get a good result from their bodies. But some of these exercises that you do see, they don't follow those particular rule sets, and I think that's whilst it's cool and novel to do, and I think there is a space in Pilates and exercise in general to do something novel to sort of keep your brain alive. I think, once again, most, if not all, of your workouts should be based on something that still has some sound mechanics behind it,
Yeah, I agree. And, I've instructed for a long time, as have you. I've taken many, many classes. And, over the years, I have played around with, doing workouts, I guess, that contain some of those kind of things that might look really cool. Now, at the end of the class, clients often feel like they haven't had a workout.
Yeah.
Exactly what you were just saying, So I think if you are going to put anything like that in your class, it's not to say like don't do it, but obviously you'd pick your people, because they're not things that 99% of the population are going to be able to do safely.
Exactly.
Safety is an issue. But on top of that, you need to stick to the bare basics of the exercises that are a little bit simpler. They're effective and they work. So you don't need to necessarily be doing all these exercises where you're turning yourself upside down and inside out, and that's not what most of the classes are. And I know we do a lot of programming and write courses together and whatnot, and both have the same viewpoint on that. But it's what works.
Yeah, exactly. What works for the largest population of people. And if you think about it, if you're a Pilates instructor and you want to help people, okay, I'm assuming you want to help the most people that you can, and really that's where it is. That's where it lies. You want to choose the exercises that are going to help the most people that you can physically have, or in your working week, okay, and not to have any like selective people that you can take.
Yeah, agreed.